Hey, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. Want to do a video on installing IKEA cabinets and then making them look like really expensive custom-made cabinets. Reason I'm doing this video is that I wanted to kind of share some stuff that I'm doing and kind of show you how you can turn something that's kind of basic IKEA into a fancy cabinet. So that's the only reason I'm posting this video. I don't really care that much about like building a YouTube empire or whatever. It's just, if I was looking around online, this is kind of would have helped me out. So I'd like to help others. So here's a before and after, but not really. So I mocked up what the cabinet would look like once it was all built out, and kind of get myself a little proof of concept on the left there. On the right, these cabinets have just been hung, and I actually have to change the left one, so that's why I'm cutting that strip out, and I'm gonna actually drop them down. But before I finish that up, it kind of gives me a good opportunity to kind of show the differences. So let's talk about what's great about IKEA cabinets. They're very easy to work with. The way they hang them is awesome. You don't have to hold that cabinet up. You actually just put this rail on the back and then you hang them. The hardware they use, let me show you real quick here. So the hardware they use is called Blum. It's the brand. Let me zoom in a little so you can see it. So you see the BLUM. So that's an Austrian, Austria, not Australia, Austria, Europe. And they make really good hardware. I mean, like the, Rolls Royce of hardware. And IKEA, being a Scandinavian company, they just use that hardware. It is so easy to adjust. It's so easy to work with compared to the old hinges. That is great. The way they do these, they're called pocket hinges. Love it. I love this. This is what you'd have in a fancy schmancy cabinet. And then let me just show you something about customization. So for example, that hinge, if I don't use a damper, right, and I shut the door, there's the old slam door, right? But then you can just buy a damper that they sell, install it, maybe one-handed, says the man. Come on. There we go. So I've installed the damper, and now, look at that. So that's just a small example of the stuff that you get from the Blum hinges, or Bloom, I don't know how to say that. They use that at IKEA. So their hinges are amazing. Most of their wood is particle board, okay? And I'm not gonna bash particle board, but what I love actually is when you use a material in the right place. So this is particle board casing, or carcass is what it would be called. And they use something called melamine foil. And if you look here, you'll see almost, let me see if I get this camera to zoom in. See that like little, it's almost like a thin veneer. It's essentially plastic, okay? Melamine is almost like a plastic. And what the melamine foil lets you do is it's great for durability, because you can put your plates in here, your fancy smancy porcelain plates, and if this was painted, it would be scratching in the first 5 minutes. Melamine foil is really, really tough. It's almost like a plastic veneer, and you can put the plates in thousands of times, and it's not going to scratch it. Or it will, but it won't, hardly even notice it. So that's what melamine foil is great for. But it does feel plasticky and kind of cheap. When you get to the doors, that's where you can get melamine foil doors, but they don't look that good. You kind of get that I don't know, they look kind of cheap. Real fancy cabinets use hardwood, okay? Typically, probably the best wood is hard maple. If you're gonna make these, I'd make them out of hard maple. And then for the plywood, you use birch, like a Baltic birch. But these are made, and they're ash. They used ash. And again, this is the interesting thing about IKEA. These are made in Czechoslovakia, or maybe Slovakia, I don't know, Slovenia, I don't know, somewhere over there in Eastern Europe. And they are beautifully made. These are really well made. Look at the wood. No knots, very nice grain, beautifully made, not expensive at all. Now these are they just put like a basic finish on there and they're meant to be like natural, but I'm going for more of a shaker style. So I've actually painted mine. And I'm gonna do a video on painting this. I didn't pull out a brush. You're not gonna get a smooth finish with a brush. And unfortunately I need better lighting in here to show you kind of the quality. But it's painted with what's called HVLP, high volume, low pressure. It's a spray gun, but it's not like the Wagner power sprayer junk that you find at Home Depot. It's specifically designed to paint very, very, very smooth paint. So this is this door painted. So that immediately kicks it up a notch. Now you're starting to get to like Martha Stewart level here. Then the hardware. Ikea sells hardware. It's made in China. It is pretty darn cheap. They got a high markup on their hardware. This hardware is solid brass and it's made in India. We bought this at a place that all they do is hardware, and you can tell. And because this is physically what you're going to touch, I do recommend spending some money on getting nice hardware. This kind of feels like a nice pebble, like off Lake Superior. It's got this real nice heft. It's solid brass. You can tell it's brass. When you're going to physically touch something, it should be a higher quality, and I'll show you guys how that kind of works out. And then obviously we put crown molding in, and I'll kind of show how we do that. But yeah, once you install crown molding and everything else, it looks a whole lot better than it would look if we just hung the cabinets and walked away. So this is kind of an intro to this video series on like kind of how I'm doing it. I'll show you why I'm cutting this out. So we're going to be removing this and adjusting the height. And let me flip off the lights. So there's two ways to do kind of lighting. One, you can do a nice lighting underneath, and that's these are actually Ikea Lights. So like I could show you over here. There they are, spotlights going down. I like these, they're brushed aluminum. They look pretty nice. I particularly like on these cabinets, you don't need anything underneath the cabinet. With a face frame cabinet, you'd have a big face frame going around it. This is nice because it's literally the shelf for the bottom and then nothing. That's great because you want every inch or millimeter, depending on where you're watching this, of space between where the counter is going to be and where the cabinet's going to be. Every little bit counts, because the other way to get space is to raise this and make it higher, but eventually people can't reach these upper shelves. So the less stuff you have underneath the cabinet, the more space you have and the more utility you have as far as using your space properly. At some point, you're going to run out of room up there where you can't either put more cabinets or you can't even get to them without a step stool, and that's kind of getting kind of pointless. So I'll show you kind of how we're doing that. But what I wanted to focus on was lighting and while we're moving it. So I started out with these lights, but then I wanted a nice backlight. Let me flip the light off here. So this is let me grab a piece of subway tile. So I wanted this kind of warm backlight. And you can see the spotlight and then the backlight. Let me flip the spotlight off. So I'm actually installing, see if I can kind of show you back there. I don't know if you can see up there. But it's actually a strip of Philips Hue lights on a special rail back there. And what that's going to do is when we tile up, let me grab this tile here. When we tile up behind the cabinet, sorry, let me grab the camera a little better. We tile up behind the cabinet. First off, it gives us room to tile behind there. And that's going to look really nice because then we don't have to cut any tile. So the tile is just going to run behind here and then that looks perfect. But it's going to pick up that light. And I don't know if you can see the spill on my hands already, but it's going to spill onto the countertop and it's going to look really, really nice. Only place I've seen something like this is on airplanes. If you look at the way they light up an aircraft, they tend to put it underneath an interior track so it spills on the windows. And you don't see the light, but it gives you that nice warm light in the aircraft in the cabin. It's the same basic concept here. But when you're putting these cabinets in, you have to think about that stuff now while you're putting the cabinets in. You can't get to the part where you're tiling and then be like, oh, I should have done that. And you can see it's got like even on that light plug on that outlet, it should look really nice. We're gonna gussy up the ends by putting basically doors on the side that are gonna make it look like panels. And then when we get to here, we'll bring the tile behind it, and then we'll put a panel on the top, and it'll look really nice. We're gonna tile all the way up on both sides here. So it's kind of a long-winded video on what we're gonna do. But basically we're gonna take your average IKEA cabinet and we're gonna make it look really, really good. I'm just a homeowner. I have some tools and a little skill, and I'll kind of show you how I'm doing it. And I'll even post IKEA hack. That'll probably get me like 6 more views. But yeah, it is an IKEA hack. It's not something that you're gonna like probably just pick this video up and spend 30 minutes in the afternoon and make your kitchen look like this. But if you're designing a kitchen and you feel like you got the skill, and then mostly if you have the patience and the interest in doing it as well as you can, that's what matters. One of my favorite statements, there's a craftsman, in the turn of the century, there's this whole movement called the craftsman style. And one of their mottos was as good as I can. In other words, you just do as well as you can, and then you put your, you played hard, left it all on the field, and that was it. And that's kind of what this is going to look like. It's not going to be perfect. I'm going to make tons of mistakes. I've already made a mistake by not building the lighting that I wanted in the first set. So, but it will be as good as I can, and hopefully this series will kind of follow this through, and eventually we'll have countertops on here and backsplash. And it may take me 6 months or a year to do it all, but this is video 1. So that's where we're going from. We're going from that to done. All right, good luck. Hope this helps someone.